Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Lyceum in the Accounting Alchemy Network. So excited to dive in with our special guests, Sarah Elliott and Brian Kush today, talking about the dimension of possible. Before we dive into that, just a little bit of an introduction to the Accounting Alchemy Network, in case this is your first time joining us. The Accounting Alchemy Network is a grassroots movement where we are working to turn the accounting profession into a vehicle for positive change in our world, shifting away from just accounting for money and finance to really focusing on how can we account for the things that we want to be accountable to in our lives, and how accounting professionals can be a big part in creating the changes that we want to see in our world and our lives. And some really fantastic examples in our community around how to go about that are Sarah Elliott and Brian Kush from Intend2Lead, and we're going to be talking today about the dimension of possible. And so I guess just kicking us off with some introductions of yourselves and your beautiful business. Brian, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Sure, Ingrid. And first of all, just thank you for having me and Sarah here today. We're super excited to talk with you. So my name is Brian Kush. I am an executive leadership coach and co-founder of Intend2Lead along with Sarah. I've grown up in this profession. I was first in public accounting, and then I was a consultant to the profession. I am a CPA turned leadership coach. I've been a coach for 16 years, and I help people to really uncover what they really want in their life and then figure out who is the leader they need to be to get there. I became a coach because of the impact that coaching has had on me and my life. I think when we work with a coach, we give ourselves a chance to kind of step out of our day to day and make sense of our life and uncover what we really want and take actions that make a meaningful difference. And I became a coach to provide others the structure, space, and support to do the same. I'm very honored to be here today to talk with you and about the profession and where we are and where we need to go. And I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And I'll echo my gratitude for you and Matthew, Ingrid, for just the work that you're doing and for including us here today. We're excited to share and connect with everyone. So, like Brian, I'm also a CPA turned leadership coach. So, I started my first career as an accountant in the auditing space and public accounting. And I had a 14-year career there. So, I spent 10 years in Big Four at PwC. And then I spent 4 years at a smaller regional firm of about 120 professionals, where I was a partner and member of the executive leadership team there. And along my journey, at that firm, I was privileged to get to work with a coach. And actually, at the time, that coach was helping me with business development and sales, because I thought, I came in to do accounting, not sales. What is this about? But the best thing about that journey was, yes, I learned about sales and it made a big difference there, but I really uncovered who I am. And, I think we're always discovering who we are and we're always on that lifelong journey. But it was just this awakening moment and time for me of transformation. I learned more about who am I? What do I really want for my life? What matters to me? Why do I do what I do? My coach was asking me these big, important questions that no one had really asked me before. And I hadn't paused to ask myself because I was just working hard, moving up the ladder, checking all the boxes to be successful, right? Doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do to be happy. And when I, through coaching, my life just became broader and richer and more meaningful. And so along that journey, that coaching helped me be a better leader and human being. And I also realized along the way I had these entrepreneurial aspirations. And so took a leap of faith and retired from that career in public accounting in 2014. So this is my 10-year anniversary coming up. So that's exciting for me. And I decided to start my own business. And then I went back to school to become an executive coach. I had a baby. I was doing all this at the same time, leaving the security of my public accounting partnership role, right, that I had worked my whole career for. It was a lot of big risks, risks, but a really exhilarating, amazing time of learning. And then I got to meet Brian, and we decided to join forces and create Intend2Lead. So Intend2Lead is a leadership coaching company. We are dedicated to coaching curious improvers to access the dimension of possible. We do that through executive coaching, leadership coaching, group coaching, and group learning. And our clients, the work we get to do helps people enhance their self-awareness, develop more confidence, build healthy cultures amidst uncertainties, right? So our mission is really to cultivate more conscious, evolved leaders in the world so they can show up not just as better leaders, but as better humans. And we're really honored every day, Ingrid, to get to do the work that we do. We work with, individuals, solopreneurs, all the way to large firms, I would say top 50 accounting firms. So we're really excited to get to do the work we do. And every day, Brian and I talk to each other and we're like, gosh, it's like fantasy land, right? Brian sometimes called it like fantasy camp or whatever. Like sometimes we wake up and we're like, we get to do this work that we love, that we really feel like makes a difference. And things like being here today, it's making a difference, we feel like. So thank you again, Ingrid.
Oh, of course. I have chills just that the getting to be able to do that work that is so attractive to our souls. That's what I want for everybody in our community, in our network, in our world. And I love that you are helping to create that with people, that you're supporting people in finding that. And I feel like that's what we're really, really needing. And it's so funny to me that like I've been part of your Elevate Alliance. So for anyone who's watching this that doesn't know, Sarah also leads an amazing group of women professionals called the Elevate Alliance, which I highly recommend checking out. And I've been a member of that for several years now. And it wasn't until somewhat recently that I realized that your main thing was coaching accounting professionals. I'm like, how did I not know that you were doing this? And you introduced me to Brian, and you both participated in our recent pilot of the JEDI program, the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion program. It was so wonderful having both of your voices in that room, such amazing ideas and what we can create in the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion space. And then you mentioned dimension of possible. And it really, really caught my attention. And I am super curious where the two of you came up with this idea of the dimension of possible. And if you can weave for us the story of what that is and how you support businesses, particularly accounting firms, in creating that, as I recognize that so often accounting firms are kind of in the routine of the status quo, the same old, and you have this beautiful way of helping people to think outside the box. And I would love you to paint that picture for us.
What a big question. I'm curious for Brian. My dog would love to answer that, but she says hello. That's Izzy. Brian, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I heard a couple questions in there. I heard like, what is the dimension of possible? And then I also heard like, how did we come up with it? How did it come to us? How is it? And then also like, how is it part of what we do and what we bring to our services and our partnerships with leaders and with firms? So, where to start, Sarah? It's such a broad, really good opening question. Go ahead. I have some thoughts, but go ahead.
Well, and then I asked you to go first, and then I'm like, well, hey, maybe we should start. Well, I was thinking, Brian, about, do you remember when we first came up with the term? Do you remember where we were and who we were with?
Yeah, we were in Texas. We were at your hometown in Austin, and we were doing what do they call it? A root session with our consultants who helped us uncover our brand, right?
Yeah. So I'll give a shout out to Emily Sicorsi and Justin Foster, so co-founders of Root and River. And now, that's Emily's firm, and Emily's a member, an Elevate sister of Ingrid's and mine. So just a shout out to her and the work that she does through Root and River. But yeah, we were sitting there, right, Brian? We had a root session, and they really helped us through coaching uncover our values, our mission, and I remember we were kicking around the words, like, what is this place? There's this place of possibility, right? The work that we do, the work that we want to bring forth to the world and help people with is create those possibilities, right? Because we live in this world of scarcity and limitation and
Yeah.
lack.
Right. Right. And fear, right? And
Mhm, mhm.
that's those are some words that really describe the accounting profession at times, right? The things that we don't want, right? All the things that we don't want and all the things that we lament on and talk about, right? The scarcity, the not having enough time, not having enough resources. It's so rampant, kind of that mindset in our profession, right? The idea of having scarcity, but also having fear around it, right? And so that was the mindset and just the environment, you know, that we reject and that we want to go to a different place, right? And so the opposite of that, and Sarah, before we came up with that term, the word you and I just use a lot is just possibilities, right? How do we help to create an environment, a mindset, a change in our profession where it's not about the scarcity and it's not about the fear. It's about what we can actually create and play in, and the word possibility, right? Just possibility is such a broad, good word where it's like you're creating something because you feel like you can and you have that power. And so I think that's where we came up with the dimension of possible, because we're always talking about helping people to create their own possibilities.
Yeah, we define the dimension of possible. And this is why it's a dimension. It's not just a place, right? It's another dimension. It
Yeah.
is this place, an elevated place where we see the world differently. We know that we are unique contributions, right? We have value and worth just for who we are, and we contribute in unique ways. Our relationships flourish in this place because we understand and believe that we're all part of a collective, and right, we can all contribute in these unique ways. We don't need to compete. We're truly collaborative, and together we all rise. So, right, those relationships, they flourish. And we say time expands because we're in this different place, right? We don't always have to measure and count everything, which I'll say for accountants, right? Accounting, right? It's about accounting and counting and measurement, and those things
Accountable.
are important. But in this place too, there's just expansion in this dimension of possible. So it's just this beautiful aspirational place. And we like to say, you know, we talk about the dimension of possible. Our work is to help people find this new dimension, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And I mean, Brian and I aren't there all the time. Are you kidding me? Like it's a
Right.
place that I aspire to be as well, right? And what a gift that we get to do the work we do, because we're raised in this world of scarcity and limitation. That's the programming we get. So I think it's an unlearning and a relearning, and just a daily practice
Yeah.
of, you know, wanting, aspiring to be in that place and not beating ourselves up when we're not there, right? Because that's just part of the process.
I love that.
Right. So in some ways, it is a rebellion. It's a rebellion against the scarcity and the not enough mindset that we condition ourselves in this profession. And as Sarah said, to bring us to a better, higher, elevated place of possibilities, right? And abundance and everything we want to create. That's what it is.
So what you're describing sounds to me like a transformation, a mindset transformation that leads to a bigger transformation. Um, what does that process look like? How would someone begin to even wrap their minds around the dimension of possible, and to shift their thinking away from the programming that we've been indoctrinated into, that might as well be the water in the fishbowl that we're swimming in, that we're just so unaware of that we don't bother questioning it. It's just, you know, it's air, it's clear, it's just, you know, that's just how it is, right? How do we shift from that to, what if it didn't need to be this way? What would different look like? What does that transition look like?
Brian, I'm wondering if you want to share, you know, the three things that we always talk about for change, because that feels relevant as that starting point. How do you feel about that?
Sure. Yeah. I will throw a slide up here if I can do that.
Ooh, visual aids. I love
Fancy.
it.
Let me just see if this is going to work. Does that work? Okay.
It is on.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So one of the things that, that Sarah and I see and realize, and when we're talking with accountants and firms, in today's day and age, we need to be able to like grow faster, right? We have to kind of accelerate our development faster. And part of that is because of all the change. Part of that is because in our profession, we just need to accelerate our people's development faster because we just don't have enough people. And a lot of firms will tell us that, right? We're not bringing in enough people to do the work we need to do. So we know as human beings, as people that are always growing, right? We think about how are the ways that we grow and how do we change. And so we think that we need to challenge accountants to realize that we grow in 3 different ways. Okay. The first way is a skill set. And that actually, accountants get that one, right? They get, hey, we need to learn certain skills to be able to grow and develop, whether it's a leader or an accountant or whatever, right? I need to be able to grow. I can grow my communication skills. I can grow my leadership skills, right? Those are basically like tools you use, models you use, right? Or action steps you take when you need to do something, right? So I may need to provide someone some feedback as a leader. And if I do that, I use skills, right? I might use 3 steps to providing feedback. And that's great. And I think accountants, we especially excel in technical skills. And we do lots of training and development in that area. But we need to realize we develop in 3 different ways. And the second one is just habits, right? We don't realize that real sustainable change isn't doing something once different. It's creating something that you do in an habitual way. And so our brains actually store our habits. We need to become intentional about how we change and adopt the habits we want for real sustainable change. And then to get to your question, Ingrid, the biggest way, we think the most underrated way, the most underutilized way that we need to change ourselves and our profession is in our mindset, right? And so what is a mindset? We all use that term a lot, but it's basically how we see the world. It's our thoughts, it's how we've been conditioned, right? And in our profession, we do condition our people to all the things that Sarah and I talked about in the beginning. The scarcity mindset, not enough time, not enough resources, not enough, not enough. We do that a lot. We condition our people to do that. It's contagious, okay? But what we need to do as leaders and as developing human beings is ask ourselves, what is the mindset that's going to serve me, right? And we can cultivate new mindsets. We have to realize the beliefs and thoughts that we have, they show up in the way we show up for others, right? So if I was my example before, if I want to use certain skills to give feedback to someone, it doesn't matter what those skills are I might use if I'm not seeing myself and that other person in a positive way, right? I can use the 3 steps to feedback, but if I'm not viewing my role to them, the opportunities, the possibilities we have together today, if I'm going to share some feedback, it doesn't matter. So that's why at Intend to Lead, we always say mindset before skill set, right? So we need to change the way we see our world. We need to change and cultivate a new type of mindset, a mindset that's going to serve us going forward with all the ambiguity and change that's happening in our world. We need to look at our mindset and we need to become aware of it and cultivate the best new mindset that's going to serve us in our profession.
Yeah.
I love this. I'm very curious. So you mentioned as far as the growing of the businesses that you're working with and having people for lack of better words, kind of all rowing in the same direction. And it's really a cultural shift. And it's so on point right now with some of the conversations we're having in the Accounting Alchemy Network is later this month, actually, we're going to have a social forum, Lyceum with Dan Luthi and Donnie Shimamoto talking about some new strategies for recruiting new and younger people into the accounting profession. And what does it look like to have people want to come and do this work with us? And I feel like that's a huge part of what you're talking about here is approaching those conversations differently and not just having it be about the skills and the scarcity mindset and the kind of toxic workplaces that accounting professionals have been subject to for so long. that we're working to create new humane workplaces where people actually want to be. And what does that look like? And getting past this idea that we have to essentially trade our freedom for a paycheck and that's just how it is. So when it comes to that mindset being the most critical of these three things, what are the main keys to shifting the mindset, to shifting those beliefs and cultivating the culture of a healthy workplace, of a healthy team? And how do you bring leadership into that mindset shift?
Yeah, it is a brilliant question. And actually, Brian, you're going to be impressed, Ingrid. We have another slide.
Oh, wow. You guys are prepped. I'm
This is like
asking all the
a
right
baby
questions when they
slide.
just lead right into your next thing.
I know, you didn't even know we had this, which answers your question. Well, it answers your question. Your
Oh,
question
this
is
is so
a big one.
cool.
Yeah, so there's a lot on here. And so I'll encourage, people who are out there watching, like, don't get caught up in the words at this point, right? It's a lot. I'll cover this, but I think what we see on this slide, what Brian and I see a lot in the profession, and I'm sure what you see too, Ingrid, is more of this old mindset on the left side of the slide. So what I really want to do, and what I'll invite everyone here to do with us, the way we make change with our mindset, the first step, and I always say it's 80% of the work, is consciousness around it, our self-awareness around it. Because again, like you said earlier, we're just fish swimming in the water. We don't know we're swimming in water. So we don't necessarily realize we're swimming in this water, which is on the left side of the slide, but we all are. And so I invite us to think about it as not with judgment, or I wish I wasn't swimming in this place and I need to, get out of here as quickly as possible. But just start with compassionate awareness of, oh, I'm here in this place. And the more we have awareness, the more we can shift to the right side here. And it's not, I always say on this slide too, it's not like I'm in on this side or that side. None of us are like that. It's a continuum, right? So I really invite, I'll go over these pretty quickly, but think of it as a shift from one side to the other that's gradual, that takes time. We may be more closer to the right side of the slide in certain ways, the left in others, all sorts of things. Okay. So it's a journey, is the short answer. Is it takes time. It is a lifetime of just continuous work day in and day out, but it starts with awareness. So with all of that preamble, I'll just kind of take these one by one pretty quickly. So in the old mindset, or the traditional mindset, leadership is seen more in this power over model, right? This power over paradigm. As a leader, I have power over my people. I'm in charge of them. And I think of it as, military, which is very important in the military. We need that. There's a command and control, right? One person's in charge and other people follow. Well, in the conscious leader mindset, which is, we believe, this more humane approach to leadership and where we need to shift to address our challenges, it is a power with paradigm. So I realize as a leader, my job is not to control you or tell you what to do. It's actually to develop you and empower you. I'm here to share power with you. And when I share my power with you, we multiply that power. And that's how we make a bigger difference. So in the old mindset, we tend to be more competitive because, we've talked about scarcity and fear. And so because of that, we feel like we need to fight for what's ours. We need to grasp, right, our things. And even in one organization as leaders, we see this a lot. It's like we're competing with each other for resources and ideas and credit. But in the conscious leader mindset, as a leader, I realize, hey, we're all in this together, right? Together, all boats rise. We're collaborative. We really, truly understand that we live in an abundant world. Even if at times it doesn't feel like that, it's because we're not seeing all of the possibilities. And the old traditional model, winning is everything, because we're competitive, right? So like everything is about winning, being the best. And the conscious leader understands actually that it's not about winning. It's about growing. It's about change, right? It's always our mistakes, our failures, our setbacks are incredibly valuable because we couldn't move forward without them. So instead of focusing on, I can't make mistakes because then I'll lose, we know that failure, mistakes are just part of the growth process, right? To really change and move forward. The old mindset is rooted in individualism, which again, right, if we're all focused on ourselves, that's when we get competitive and we're not really working together. The conscious leader understands we're all connected. I mean, we know this. The pandemic showed us this. We are connected no matter how individual we think we are, doing our own thing. I'm not bothering anybody. Everything we say and do impacts other people. It's just most of us aren't even aware of it. So the conscious leader expands that awareness, right? Cultivates that consciousness of the collective and what am I contributing to that and how can we work together to be better? The old mindset, kind of that traditional mindset, is also really seeing the value in having the answers and knowing things. And our brains are so good at making judgments because that's what we're wired to do. So the brain is always trying to assess people, opportunities, situations. And we tend to assess people, opportunities, and situations based on what we already know. Right? It's the past programming in the brain. So that really limits our possibilities. But the conscious leader realizes, no, what's really valuable is learning, curiosity, things I don't know yet. So we can understand that there's so much more value in a question and not knowing. And Ingrid, this is really hard, right? Because as humans, don't we always want to know because we feel safer with certainty? But we can't create possibilities and find new things if we're just playing in all the things we already know. So we get really curious.
I'll just add to that, that word certainty is huge for accountants, right? We want certainty. We want stability. That's in a lot of ways why we're valuable or hired by clients, right? So the idea of, wow, you're actually going to embrace the learning process of not knowing, leaning into that and working together to something new, that is really hard because yeah, as accountants, we struggle if we don't have the answer right away. Right? That's what we feel like we're valuable. Oh, if you ask me a question, I have the answer right away, then I'm smart and I'm a good accountant and I can do that. Right. But in today's paradigm with the leadership challenges that we have, right, it needs to be more about working on it together. It needs to be more about living in some of the questions versus always having the answer right away. So Sarah's right. This is particularly a hard thing for any human being, but I think even harder for accountants for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I want to just give voice really quick to the chat that people are like, oh my gosh, this is so good, and asking if they can share this slide on social media. So yeah, Alina, if you want to just grab a screenshot of this slide and
please
post it in our
free.
LinkedIn and Facebook groups, show the rest of our community who are here with us live what they're missing today. And so glad that this is going to be on YouTube later for people who weren't able to join us for the live conversation. But yeah, Sarah, please continue. Like, I'm loving this, and it's striking me that it reminds me a lot of a exercise that Matthew and Alina and I did at one of our first planning retreats for the Accounting Alchemy Network, just detailing through like what are the characteristics of the old paradigm that we're trying to shift away from to the new paradigm that we're trying to create in the Accounting Alchemy Network. And you hit on so many of the same points that we did. Like clearly we're on a similar wavelength, which is why we're like, let's play together. So yeah, you're on it, and I would love to hear the rest of this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'm not at all surprised, right? I mean, I'm sure too that's what attracted you to Elevate, because we're thinking in these similar ways. And yeah, and I mean this, right? These are Brian's and my words that we put to this, but these are not new ideas or concepts, right? It's out there in the consciousness of the universe, that we're excited to share it, through the work we do. Okay, so I think about halfway through this slide. So, okay, so the old mindset, it's we can't show weakness because it's a scarce world. We're all in competition, right? And winning is everything. So I cannot show you my weakness. And the conscious leader understands that vulnerability is strength. Okay, so just pause with that for a second. Vulnerability is strength, because when we show up as the vulnerable humans that we are, that is the avenue for connection with one another, true human connection, growth, understanding, right? That curiosity. When we're vulnerable, we can say, I don't know the answer. And then we can sit with the question and get curious. And that opens up new avenues of creativity, right? And collaboration that weren't there before. So vulnerability is very powerful. The old mindset, the purpose of business is the bottom line, making money, right? And because of that, oftentimes people are exploited for the sake of profit. And we can harm people and the environment, and all for the sake of the dollar. Now, the conscious leader, the purpose of business is a sense of purpose for people and fulfillment. And we like to say, business is just humans helping other humans, truly. And so when we understand that as humans, we're bringing forth our individual missions and contributions to the world, people are greater than profit. Profit is a result, and profit is important. We always say this. We're not saying, hey, everybody, don't worry about making money, or otherwise you can't sustain yourself. So it's important, but that's not the point, right? I always think of profit as a result when you're taking care of people and doing the right thing and doing important work in the world and making a difference. The old mindset, we're more focused on standardizing people. So as a leader, I want you to kind of be a certain way. And I have a vision of what success looks like for you. And it's the same for everybody. And guess what it usually looks like? Probably looks like me, right? And so as a leader, I'm trying to make mini me's and say, we should all be doing the same thing here. But the conscious leader understands, no, we're all different. So my job as a leader is to understand you and help you tap into your unique gifts, right? So how can I help you discover that? How can I help inspire you to bring those forth? And how can we all work together, right, with these different gifts we have to create something higher than we could apart? The old mindset is rooted, we try to motivate people. And I love this one, motivate versus inspire, because we hear this a lot in the profession too. How do I motivate my people to do things? So how I like to talk about motivation is it's trying to get people to do something based on things outside of themselves. So I think of it really, frankly, kind of as manipulation. So I'm thinking, I need you, Ingrid, to do something. So how can I motivate you by, whatever, dangling the carrot or like the stick, right? So I'm trying to motivate you with incentives or fear versus inspiring you. So inspiration comes within. It's how can I understand you and what lights you up, Ingrid, to where you show up and you contribute because you want to, right? And you're inspired from within. And that is so much easier said than done, right? Than what I just said. But again, I want people to understand just an awareness around this. Like, what's really our motivation in this? Is it really about trying to get you to do what I want you to do? Or is it really about, helping someone uncover their potential, right? And contribute that.
Alina said in the chat, golden handcuffs.
Oh, we could have a whole separate conversation about that and how we see that in the profession, right? With the
I mean, one of the things we hear from leaders at firms and organizations is, oh, how do I hold my people accountable, right? And what they're really saying is, how do I enforce what I want from them to happen? How can I put the fear in them? That's what they think about when they hear that word accountability, which is striking fear, jolting people, right? And so what Sarah's talking about is actually, as a leader, getting a little less comfortable with knowing what you know, instead asking how you can inspire other people by asking them what they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing accountability as a true gift, a gift of support to another person, right? So instead of motivating through fear, we're inspiring through coaching and through asking people what they want, right? And how can they get there, and letting go of that command and control, right? And instead asking people to tap into what they want and their unique gifts. And right. And so you can see how this is not easy for leaders that have grown up in this conditioning of fear and scarcity, where they have to control and feel like they have to jolt people to be more like them. It's hard. It's hard for leaders, and it's what people want. It's what taps into their innermost power and their potential.
Yeah.
That particular point is reminding me a lot of the book club that we did last year. Ed Kless and I, within the Accounting Alchemy Network, read and discussed with a group of people Peter Block's newest book, Confronting Our Freedom. His other one from 20 plus years ago is called Freedom and Accountability at Work. But that idea of confronting our freedom, it recognizes that freedom and accountability are the same thing. They're synonymous. In order to be accountable, we have to be free to make our own choices. And in order to be free, we have to be accountable to our choices. But so often we get trained to basically give our freedom away so that we can put the responsibility outside of ourselves for our unhappiness and blame everything around us rather than showing up in our full selves and taking responsibility, which some people see responsibility as a negative thing, but I see responsibility as our ability to respond
Yes.
in the
Yes.
way that we want to show up to all of the stimulus around us. And that might be circumstances, it might be other people, it might be our own mindset. And that it really comes down to what is the fullest expression of our personal freedom within this incarnation that we find ourselves in this crazy 3D reality. It's existential, it's spiritual. It really gets into some really deep stuff and how our consciousness, whatever that is, here we're talking about a conscious leader mindset, shows up through the work that we choose to do in our world, and how we can show up on our fullest, highest selves, and how we can do that in the most beautiful interrelated relationships, that we can create these things together. And I feel like that's that shift between motivate and inspire is, are we sacrificing our freedom? Are we relinquishing it? Are we giving our power away? Are we asking that of others? Or are we working together to create a rising tide that raises all ships? I love this. Love it, love it, love it. And I feel like that leads right into your next point of tell versus ask too, is how are we going about those things? So tell us about that one.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you just for sharing all of that, Ingrid. That was so beautifully said. And I'm thinking I got to check out that book.
So good.
So yeah, in the old mindset, as a leader, I'm thinking my job is to tell you what to do, right? Because again, I have power over you. It's command and control. I'm here to tell. And I will say what I see in accounting too, and in coaching sometimes we just want someone to tell us what to do, right? Because we're trained that way. And it's like, just give me the answer. Just make my life easier. Well, guess what? My answer may not be your answer. And in fact, how is that really helping you develop? Right.
Right.
So the conscious leader knows that there's power in asking questions instead, and that develops resourcefulness. And as coaches, right, we use coaching as that tool to help someone uncover their own wisdom within, because we have these unique life experiences, right? And we have our own wisdom that we bring into this world. And so how can we tap into that by, instead of you, Ingrid, telling me what to do and I do it your way, how could I discover my way? And then that encourages my accountability and ownership, because it's mine, right? And what we love about coaching, I mean, I'm pretty sure Brian loves this too. Like we talk about it. Like we love that when we show up as coaches and we don't know, and we show up as super curious with other people, we learn so much too, right? We walk away from a coaching conversation, every single coaching conversation I have that I'm privileged to have, someone shows up with me vulnerable, right? It is such an intimate relationship to have that with someone. They share their challenges, their fears. We ask questions to understand their beliefs, right? Because our beliefs underlie everything, like Brian said, the mindset. So it's like understanding how someone's thinking and how that correlates to how they're feeling and their actions and the results they're getting. And we dig deep into that and ask these questions. And then they leave the conversation discovering things about themselves, and we learn too. Like, what a gift is that in leadership? And so we encourage people through our work as well, and through the group learning we do and the group coaching and just all the things in helping organizations create coaching cultures, is leadership. We believe a good leader is a coaching leader. We bring those coaching skills to the table as leaders. And you don't have to be a certified professional coach, right? Like Brian and me, to show up and have your coach's hat on in accounting. So that's really what we want to see more of, is one, more accountants tapping into coaching, using coaching to elevate themselves and gain that self-awareness and begin to shift, more on the spectrum towards the conscious leader mindset. And then also to support those leaders in bringing those same coaching skills to the table so they can do that for others. that's really exciting, right? Because it amplifies the change and it really helps make these cultural shifts that we know we need to make.
So we feel strongly that that shift that Sarah's talking about is one from having the tell leaning, right? The I'm going to give you the answers versus I'm going to show up as a default. I'm going to show up as coaching, as a coach, as my leadership style, right? And so when I do that, my mindset is shifting from one of total belief just in myself and my ability to tell other people what to do to a shift in I believe in the others around here. I believe in their capacity. I believe in their potential. I believe in their ability to struggle and to get answers eventually, right? And like Sarah said, to tap into their wisdom, to tap into their resilience, to increase their capacity, right? And so I become more a leader of leaders because I realize I can coach them and I can tap into their brilliance. And when I do that, as Sarah said, and we become more of a coach, not only do we help them to learn, not only do we learn a lot about them, but we learn a lot about ourselves. And we open ourselves to be curious believers of other people, right? And Sarah and I are just addicted to that mindset because we know what it does for us, not just as professionals and business people, but what it does to us in all of our lives, right? And as Sarah said a little bit earlier, we're not perfect at it. We still have to catch ourselves not having that mindset. But when we do, that's showing up in an elevated place. That's showing up more in the dimension of possible because then you're believing in possibilities for everyone around you. And that's where you make other people better. And you inspire them to be better by being that model of holding that mindset, and how that is so totally contagious to others. That creates more coaching cultures, which is what Sarah and I know our profession needs more.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Mm. So how we like to sum it up, if you look at really what's happening here on the left side, is that old mindset again that we all have. Okay, so there's no shame in this. We all grow. This is the water we're swimming in. It's rooted in scarcity, fear, individualism. It's rooted in that ego. It's very ego based. And then the conscious leader mindset is rooted in abundance. It's in love. And we're moving from the ego to the heart, right? And when we lead with our hearts, not just our heads, we're leading with wisdom. And we are conscious that we're part of the collective, right? And that's really that humane approach to leadership, right? And understanding we really are all one, right? We're connected. And how can we show up in that way?
I love this so much. And my mind generally goes to the like, okay, so how do we get this everywhere? How do we expand this? And I'm, of course, the clients that you're working with, if they found you and they've chosen to engage with you, they're on board to do this work with you. Otherwise, they're kind of pre-qualified. They know what they're getting into. If they're like, I'm going to hire Intend2Lead to help me transform my firm. What about the rest of the accounting profession? What about the ones that maybe haven't opted in yet? And when we start talking about this paradigm shift from the old mindset, getting away from ego and scarcity and, sacrificing our values and beliefs on the altar of profit, because of course, that's just what we need to do to survive in the capitalist world that we find ourselves in. And there's nothing we can do to change it. So you might as well just bite the bullet and surrender your freedom and just to heck with it. When people are in that space of ego and fear, is there anything that we can do to support them in finding something that feels better, in coming to that heart space, that humane space? Have you found any hacks to support people in shifting out of the old mindset when they're trapped there?
It is a great question.
That we've wrestled with and is tough. Yes.
I mean, do you want to go first, Brian? I have some thoughts as well. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Ingrid. Sarah and I have wrestled with it. There's one thing to say, hey, a lot of the firms that we work with tend to be more progressive. Maybe they're already pre-qualified. Maybe they've already tried to create more of a coaching culture. Maybe some of their key executives are already on board, right? And so it's easier for us to work with firms like that. And frankly, we want to work with firms like that. Um, because it can be easier for us to work with them just to do the things we do. On the other hand, like you said, it's our profession that needs to change, right? And so, what do we do, or what can be done, right, with those firms that struggle with some of this, that might feel like the older mindset is serving them, right? Maybe they feel like they've been successful up until now, and this mindset is serving them, and the first thing that comes up for me when I hear this is to just watch ourselves and our judgment there, right? Of those people. It's easy for us to say, well, they're wrong and everyone else is right. But that's actually holding the old mindset towards them when we do that. So we need to watch our own mindset, be a little bit curious about them. Um, One thing I've noticed in some of that culture or those types of firms is, wow, sometimes the ripple effect of one of the people at that firm, especially if it can be a leader, if they just themselves personally engage a coach, right? We've seen this before, Sarah, where if they just engage the coach themselves, they become the coachee, right? They see the power of coaching, the power of possibility, the power of a mindset of another human being just saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to show up with you as a curious believer in who you are, right? I'm going to adopt the growth mindset where I feel like you can always get better. And I'm going to simply rely on your brilliance, rely on your wisdom, and ask you questions versus giving you all of the answers, right? When they can have a coaching experience like that and see that shift from the coachee perspective and the value that they get maybe from a relationship like that, that can actually create a ripple effect, where they've been able to benefit from a different way of looking at the world and a different type of relationship, right? And so that they see that coaching, when they benefit from it, then they'll say to ourselves, Sarah and I have seen this before. Oh, how do I let other people at my firm see what this is, right? How can I benefit by being more of a coach? When a coach was great for me and I benefited as the coachee, how can I be a little bit more of a coach to other people? So that's the first thought that comes up with me, just is that unique ripple effect of just getting one person coached, them seeing the value, and then saying, okay, what's left? How can I bring more of this to my organization or my team? Or no matter how small or big their firm is.
I
Sarah,
love
did you want to
that.
add? Yeah.
Yeah. And do you actually mind, Brian, stopping the screen share for
Sure.
just so we can
Sure.
chat more without all the, thank you so much. Yeah, so I love that I let you answer first because I'm like, what he said. So, I mean, I wasn't surprised we were aligned on that. The biggest difference we can make is to do our own work. The more we're doing our work and modeling that for others, the more we invite others in. And we can invite them in as well. But I think I really believe is we need to let go of that idea that my job is to change your mind and you're the problem, because we see this a lot. We get in organizations, and it's funny, Ingrid, because you said, the organizations you work with, they must be progressive and they're embracing this and they knew who they're hiring. They do, but organizations are full of many people.
Mhm.
And some people are really on board and some people are not. And so we hear that a lot. We'll share this information. They're like, I'm on board, but we have other senior leadership at our firm that's not. And it becomes this kind of us versus them. So we're here in the conscious leader mindset, but we have this old traditional mindset and they're a problem. And how do we change them? And what we point out is when that happens, just pause and say, right now, where are you on the continuum? That sounds very competitive. That sounds us versus them. So to understand that that's because we're swimming in that water, that when we do that, we're not modeling that conscious leader mindset. And that's okay, but to have awareness and recognize it and say that, oh, if I can let go though of feeling like I got to change all the other people, focus on myself, model that, share the benefits of what I'm learning, how I'm growing with others, like Brian said. Right? I think we can make that change. But the more that we talk about it, we practice it, we're not shy about it, the more we'll find the others oh, you too, right? And we can kind of amplify and collect, right? We tap into that power of the collective.
I love that. It's almost like we're kind of sharing an inoculation and building up our resilience, our immunity to this scarcity mindset, and that's currently endemic in our society. And I love what Mariette said in the chat. She said, great convo team. I agree completely that accountants are playing this coaching role without realizing it. But knowing this, it's important they develop their skills in this area and their mind. And it's just with our clients and with our teams internally, either way, we are doing some of these coaching things, but yet they don't teach this in school. They don't teach these ideas in accounting courses. And I think that that's part of what gets back to, we actually had a comment in our Facebook live chat. Ed Kless posted, I'm curious as to where in the old mindset was it that purpose equals profit? Milton Friedman, 1974, and Peter Drucker, as far back as the 1940s, taught the opposite, namely that profit is the result of fulfilling one's purpose. And I love, Ed, thank you so much for bringing those ideas in. I love Peter Drucker. And I feel like a lot of this old mindset, we're speaking from our generational knowledge. You know, I mean, Ron Baker and Ed Kless love to talk about when they're trying to tear down the billable hour, that the billable hour was invented in the early 1900s. This is not something that's been around for thousands of years, and that's just how it is, and so that's how it always has to be. A lot of these ideas of how toxic our workplaces are and have become are more recent than the 1940s or even 1970s, that our world has become more and increasingly divisive and exploitative and extractive of our peoples and our planet. Our population of the world has doubled since the 1970s. And that's a really, really big shift in a short amount of time. That the last 50 years has really, really changed our world dramatically and has put us more and more into these positions of what we're seeing now, this old mindset that you're describing, that these are fairly recent shifts, a lot of them. Now, it's been building over time as settler colonialism, capitalism, institutionalized racism, all of these issues that we find ourselves swimming in. Some of them have been mitigated over the decades, centuries. Things like the 14th Amendment have been important to a lot of the work that we're doing, and there's still a lot of work to be done. And I feel like it's coming around to a lot of the big discussions that we're having here and bringing in a more diverse array of education into our professions, particularly our financial professions, recognizing that so much of what goes on in our world is determined in the financial realms, the choices that we're making with our money, which is how we currently bring the things we want and need into our lives. How do we really vote with our dollars rather than feel like we're being railroaded into having to go about things in certain ways? How do we shift away from having a purely transactional economy to having a more reciprocal economy that is based in supporting each other to be fully in our freedoms? What does that look like? And I feel like the more we can have these conversations with other accounting professionals, the more accounting professionals can support our clients in living their freedom, and the more we can have a really truly free, beautiful world where we're living in right relationship with all peoples and our planet. And I love what you are working to create here. So recognizing that we've got about 5 minutes before the top of the hour.
Wow.
I know it's been
How did
whipping
that
by.
happen?
Exactly.
I
Such
had no
great
idea.
conversation. I would love to ask, if there's anything that you haven't gotten to touch on that you would really like to make sure that the Accounting Alchemy Network and the accounting profession as a whole is aware of around these ideas or the work you do. If you could drop an inspiration bomb, not a motivation, but inspiration bomb on the people watching this recording, what ideas would you love to have out there in the world?
I'm laughing too about word choice. It's like, well, inspiration, we don't want to bomb anyone. It's so violent, but no,
It's like a glitter bomb.
inspiration, love, like, yeah. I'll say something that came up as I was listening to you share there, Ingrid, is how important it is for all of us, for accountants, to take care of ourselves. Okay, because the work we're talking about is hard work, and the pandemic we see in our profession is burnout. We talk about burnout, we talk about mental health. We poll thousands of people across the profession, and our statistics are over 75%, some places as high as 90%, but over 75% of accountants are in burnout or recently experienced it. Okay, so just think about the suffering there. And, when Ed posted in that Facebook Live about, purpose equals profit and where's that coming from? And I think when people are burned out and they're getting the paycheck and they're making good money, it begins to be all about, well, if I'm going to be here and I'm miserable, then let's make as much money as we can. Let's maximize that profit, right? If I'm going to be here and I sacrificed all these things. So I think we've got to get away from that and let go of that and say, how can I take care of myself? How can I tap into who I am? What inspires me? What brings me joy? How can I find the joy in my day-to-day? How can I infuse play into my work? When are those times when I take breaks and I walk away? Because not only do I perform better and I'm happier as a human, I can show up and be present to lead my people and inspire them and connect with them and be the person I want to be for the people outside of work. So like, that's what I believe is just, please take care of yourselves day in and day out just by think about that. If each one of us could commit to that and model that for others and encourage others to do that, we would revolutionize this profession. That alone would change the whole entire thing.
Yeah, I'm glad, Sarah, we had enough time for you to be able to share that, because that's truly the first place we can start at in terms of the dimension of possible, right? We can talk all about, and I'm just very thankful, Ingrid, for the space you've given us today to just talk about these issues and bring it to people's awareness and all that. But if you can just, like Sarah said, just start with yourself and ask yourself, hey, you know what? We've got the old mindset, right? Our profession thrives in that, like, that billable hours lifestyle, right? That people talk about, and that's just not something that is going to work into the future. It's just not going to work. So the idea of saying, hey, how can I become a healthy human being first for myself, and modeling that, like Sarah said, because when you do that, everyone is looking to the leaders at organizations, not just of what they do, but how they do it and the lifestyle that they live. And right now, Sarah and I are hearing lots of negative feedback about sometimes what they're seeing, right? Not all of it's negative, some of it's good, and we're starting to maybe shift the tide a little bit there, right? But if you first start with yourself on all the stuff we've talked about today, that inside out approach of, hey, how can I prioritize my own self-care? How can I put real, healthy, functional boundaries into my life? When you do that, as Sarah said, you change the entire profession. You revolutionize what we do, because that is very contagious. People are looking at other people. And when we see someone else stick up for themselves, we see that it's possible for us. And that is truly what our profession needs. So I think that's a great place for us to end, which is the idea of you putting yourself first and foremost as a leader, not as because accountants see that as selfish. If anything, that will actually change it for other people.
I love that. Thank you both so much. You just had like one after the other mic drops. So yeah, I think that's exactly where we're going to leave it. Thank you both so much for the amazing work that you're doing in the world, and really just creating this rising tide that raises all ships in our profession. And you're both such an inspiration, and I'm grateful that we get to have you in our community. And yeah, the chat is going with thank yous. Marriott says, inspiring glitter balloon.
I love that, Harriet. That's my elevate sister right there. Thank you,
Oh,
Harriet.
yes. Yep. Thank you both so much, and thanks to everyone who is has joined us live, and to anyone watching the replay. And let's keep this conversation rolling in the Facebook and LinkedIn groups. Feel free to tag Brian and Sarah if you've got any questions. And yeah, let's go out and create more inspiring workplaces where we get to create the change we want to see in the world. Thanks so much, Sarah and Brian, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Take
Bye.
Thank you,
care.
everybody. Thank you, Ingrid.